What happens when cyber attacks are no longer human?
Has cybersecurity hit its human limit?
The only way to defend is machine versus machine.
AI threats are moving faster than any security team can handle, and Galina Antova says the old model of cybersecurity is broken.
The attackers only need to be right once. For defense, it's a lot harder.
So she started Kai. They just came out of stealth with $125 million in funding, autonomous AI agents, and Fortune 500 customers already on board. It was built for one purpose: machine versus machine. We're at the RSAC conference. My name is William Salvi, and this is the CEO series, where we have real conversations with real CEOs. Let's go talk to Galina. All right, we're with the CEO of Kai, Galina Antova. Galina,
Thank you for having me.
joining. Yeah, you just came out of stealth. One, if you could tell me what Kai is, I'm just interested in knowing what the company is and how long were you in stealth. So give me a little bit of an overview.
We were building for a year and things are going extremely fast, building with AI for AI. So Kai is autonomous defense with AI. It's not just we build with AI, it's actually AI from the ground up. So we're seeing a lot of traction with a lot of incredible customers. And so it was time to share with the world what we're building.
Who are some of your customers? Like, who are you targeting?
It's mostly like large enterprises, Fortune 500, Global 1000, and we are solving a number of different challenges across their existing security stack and security workflows. And if you think about what we're doing with Kai, is the world until today in security was kind of like tools. The output of tools was handled by humans. So this whole paradigm is changing, and that's changing to just AI agents doing the work of security. And so we're collapsing the security stack. We're replacing some of the tools. We're definitely replacing the manual work that no security practitioners want to do. And we get to risk reduction within minutes versus the days and weeks and months that it currently takes. So if you think about this is like the future of security, we're building it from the ground up.
Yeah, so talk about that, because you mentioned in a LinkedIn post, like you want to rebuild how cybersecurity works from its first principles.
Yes.
So I'm interested, what does that mean? And then also on top of that, is the old way of cybersecurity dead?
Yeah, well, look.
Whatever the old way is.
So first of all, we're building on top of like trillions of dollars of investment in the core models and AI. And so if the best we can come up with is just bolting on AI to existing workflows, that is literally failure of the imagination, right? So you talk to any security professional, any security leader, our world is extremely fragmented, right? So like the average Fortune 500 CISO has 85 plus tools.
Sorry to cut you off.
Yeah.
Is each individual tool like susceptible to cyber attacks?
All of the tools have a place, but if you think about how security kind of matured and grew up, there was a lot of fragmentation, right? So you needed a new tool to address a new, edge case, etc., adding to the telemetry, etc. We're at a point right now where we have the opposite problem, right? We have too much telemetry and not enough visibility and not enough action of like, what do you do with all of that security telemetry and how do you actually get to risk reduction? If we were building security from first principles from the ground up today, how would we build it? And then the practical aspects of like, well, you can't go and replace 85 tools at once, right? So where are we gonna start? Like, what are the workflows that we're starting with? What are the pieces of the process that we're starting with? And that's how we started building like piece by piece. The end result of that is once you start chaining those pieces together, you get into autonomous defense. So you're getting from threat intel to basically what are you doing for your detection rules to what are you doing about your remediation steps in minutes, not days, not weeks, not months.
Has cybersecurity hit its human limit?
In many ways, yes. Absolutely. If you look at the attacker side, they're already running autonomous attacks with AI. And so the only way to defend is machine versus machine. Like it just
fire with fire.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like a lot of the stuff is just not built for human scale anymore. And so our philosophy is let the machines do the things that machines are really good at so that humans can actually focus on the strategy. What we say at Kai is like we make the human defenders superhuman.
How many companies or enterprises, I should say, are using an older playbook that makes them susceptible?
At least for the last decade, we went into like this kind of extreme segmentation and silos of the tools and the people and the workflows. And we're seeing the only way for us to defend effectively is to just kind of start the convergence of that.
Could you Talk to me like I'm 5.
Yeah.
Could you describe, like, what does that mean, like the silos, and what are some of these attacks? Give us an example of like what you're protecting against.
Just like we're using AI for our products, the attackers are doing exactly the same thing. While in the past it was what is the easiest kind of target to get into, now if you think about like the enumeration aspect, like attackers can just go and like try everything. Like if you were to use an example of like a house, right, and somebody trying to get in, maybe in the past with the tools available you can just go and like try one door, try one window, and so it was taking time for the attackers to also do that. Nowadays it's just basically all attack vectors all at once all the time. Defense was always so much harder than attacking an enterprise because the attackers have to be right. Exactly.
To find
exactly. And so the way enterprise security is built nowadays, it's like you've got, when I say silos, you mean you've got one team handling vulnerabilities, another team handling threat exposure, another team, working on detection engineering rules with a lot of different tools. And so all of these handoffs from tool to tool, from human to human, are what takes a lot of time. Even if you have some kind of automation baked in, which a lot of companies do, it is not at the speed of thought, right? So this is where we're transforming each one of those pieces of work to something that works autonomously with AI agents, so you don't lose time. First of all, the machines can process things at millions of times faster than what the humans can, and then you're not losing time in the handoffs between humans.
At what point does AI stop becoming a tool and start becoming like the problem?
It's how you use the tools, right? So of course they require a lot of guardrails, et cetera, et cetera. It's not just cybersecurity. I mean, every single function at every single company is being transformed with AI, and that is the future. Organizations that are embracing it are the ones that are going to be thriving.
How do you think business leaders should be viewing this? Like, how should they be looking at cybersecurity and how they're addressing any problems that might be coming to their business?
We're already seeing the shift. Security folks are tired of the fragmented nature of security. They're tired of how, in many cases, dysfunctional the current status quo is. And so they're looking for ways of very aspirationally, like, how can AI help us not just improve incrementally on what we're doing, but actually kind of redesign things from first principles. So all of those ideas that we implemented at Kite, they came from customers.
Are we underestimating, I'm using that very broadly, how fast AI attacks can evolve?
You talk to like most security folks, they're saying that anywhere between 6 to 12 months, pretty much all of the attacks will be autonomous AI. And so there's just no way that we can defend with human defenders only without that same level of automation.
Does it scare you?
No, I think it's super exciting. I think that's the story of security. It's always, the attackers innovate and defense has to innovate. And so it's always that, we make each other better.
Let's talk a little bit about you.
Yeah.
You just said Claroty.
Yes.
It's like a $3 billion company?
Yes.
And now
not just the last decade of my life, but yes.
Yeah. How has it been shifting from that, a very well-established business, into I'm back to founder mode? So you raised $125 million. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
How is it with your mental shift? Like, you have this established firm business, and then now you're on day one energy.
Look, in security, I think just like any other business, there's no guaranteed success, right? You just gotta hustle, and I just love the early days of building. I think this is the most exciting time of a company, is just when you're figuring out how you can create something that did not exist. The reason I got excited to build again was, again, like, AI allows us to do things that we couldn't even dream about a couple of years ago. And so I think we need to dream big and bold of how we can rebuild things, and the response from like customers and prospects have been overwhelming. It was like, thank you for saying, what we want out of security, and not just be incremental in our ambitions. It's super, super fascinating to be back to like ground zero, and it's like whatever success you've had, I mean, that's in the past. You just got to prove yourself all over again.
What's like a hard lesson you learned with Claroty that you're taking to Kai, where you're like, I'm not doing that again?
Biggest one for me was like, make decisions faster. There are very few decisions in the lifetime of a company that are irreversible. And I think I just learned that making a decision, as long as it's like directionally correct, it's better to make it fast than delay. So it's all about execution. I think that's really what sets a lot of the successful companies apart from other ones, is just the execution. And execution is not easy. It doesn't matter how much money you've raised, it doesn't matter, who you have on the team, you still have to execute and outperform. You just have to outwork everybody else.
You're from Bulgaria?
Yes, I'm Bulgarian.
When did you come here?
Oh, I've lived all over the world, but I moved to the States with Siemens actually. I moved part of the Siemens business to Atlanta, and so that's how I ended up here.
What experiences made you want to go get an MBA and become an entrepreneur? I mean, it's not easy to do what you're doing. So were your parents entrepreneurs? Like, did you have something in your early development where you're like, that's what I want to do?
Yeah.
So, I mean, tell me a little bit more.
Growing up in Bulgaria with a lot of changes, right? In the 80s, at the end of the 80s, everything changed in the country, right? And so I think that just kind of hustle of like surviving in a country where literally all of the rules changed overnight was kind of formative, I think. Things were not structured the way they are, in Western countries. And so that just meant that you have to find like creative ways of like, what do you want to get out of life?
Was there war in Bulgaria?
No, there was no war, but as the political regime changed, we went through like periods where Bulgaria was not part of the Soviet Union, but it was economically dependent on the Soviet bloc.
Okay.
And so like literally when that change happened and the Soviet Union collapsed and there were political changes in Bulgaria,
it's a lot of uncertainty.
Infrastructure, yeah, exactly. Even just like basic infrastructure stuff like how do you get food into the supermarkets, like just all the infrastructure process just kind of broke down. So like all of a sudden there weren't like goods in the supermarket, right? Like there were long lines of like getting bread and yogurt and stuff like that. And you think about it and it's like, okay, that's like the basics. I remember that, yeah.
What did your parents do?
They just had regular jobs, but also as part of like that transition, they tried to be entrepreneurs as well.
Yeah.
And so everybody was just trying to find like a hustle and survive, and that's part of the reason what motivated us immigrating to Canada. So pretty much like my whole extended family immigrated to Canada, but I think those early days in Bulgaria, because of the uncertainty, it just kind of gave me a perspective of like, well, not everything in the world is set, and you can just kind of go and like do your own path. And then from there on, very traditional undergrad in computer science and stuff like that, but I was not.
And this is in Canada.
This is in Canada, yeah. And I was like, okay, but there's like more than just the technology, which is what prompted me to like go and seek an MBA.
The situation in Bulgaria, and you said like there was uncertainty.
Yeah.
Do you think that has any correlation to you being in cybersecurity, where it's like, no, certainty is key actually, and we need systems to work?
I love technology. I mean, math was like what I was doing from a very early age, kind of like advanced stuff. And so I think technology has always just been fascinating. And if you think about all of the technological changes in the world, like everything related to like digital transformation, that is all predicated on cybersecurity working. And so I think that was like the fascinating angle of everything we were doing. It was like the infrastructure changes, like, through my time at IBM, we lived through like the whole, move to the cloud and all of that. And so all of those fundamental technological changes, they were kind of supported and predicated on security.
What are you truly like, no, this could worry me in 2 to 3 years because of the way things are moving and just the way companies potentially aren't prepared? And is there something that you're worried about?
I definitely worry about like the speed of change. Definitely it's an opportunity, but also it's a challenge. And again, it goes back to that asymmetry between the attackers and the defenders. So the attackers only need to be right once. For defense, it's a lot harder. Really, the attacks are becoming truly autonomous. And while Kai and many other companies are building towards that, I don't know that operationally, like a lot of organizations will be able to move fast enough. That's like usually where a lot of the conversations and a lot of our time is spent talking to customers about how fast can you actually move? Because it's not just technology, it's not just like rip and replace, it's like the operational processes, etc. I think we just have to like rise to the challenge, because the alternative is not great, absolutely. Yeah. The availability of all of those like AI tools, building blocks, it also allows attackers to be a lot less sophisticated than what they needed to be in the past to be impactful. So that worries me a little bit. It's kind of democratization of autonomous AI attacks, and a lot of like smart people could use that. They don't have to be like nation states.
Is it typically, or at least maybe in the past more so, either funded or done by nation states?
Yeah. I mean, the sophisticated ones to a large extent, right?
And why are they just doing this because it just weakens things, or they can get certain information, or like why? Like
a lot of different motivations. Just like AI is a building block for us and a tool, it's exactly the same way for the attackers. So I think the pace of how fast we're changing, it needs to accelerate.
I don't think anyone disagrees with the fight fire with fire, because like attackers are going to do what's necessary to get what they want achieved. But I'm trying to think of like the human element of all this, because you have like everyday people like working at these companies, or just everyday people that are just like, what the hell is going on? Now like attackers are getting more sophisticated. Now we have to put in autonomous machines to attack. Like at what point does like it just starts to unravel and it's like, oh God,
Well, security needs to be transparent, right? So like in the early days of security was always like the no people, right? And I think a lot of that changed in the last decade. Security started being seen as an enabler of the business. And I think with AI, we have an opportunity to like truly have security be transparent and invisible. The business of that company is the business, it's not security, right? So security's function is to transparently protect what the company does without interfering with the pace of the company. And so I think with AI, we're not just saying, okay, security is not going to interfere, we're saying security is going to enable.
I love it. Congrats on the raise.
Thank you.
I hate saying congrats for raises, though. I used to, and then I realized I was like, it's actually like a bill.
Yeah, exactly. It's a lot of hard work, but we're super excited and we're building super fast. I just feel very honored to be able to build again, and for a lot of folks to be trusting me to work for Kai, to work with Kai. It's very exciting to be on this path again, but it's all about the mission. I hope that we push along the industry just like we did with Claroty, and we show what's possible and have fun along the way.
Finish my statement. The difference between being a CEO and a founder is?
Irrespective of your title in the company, you do everything. Startups are successful because of the commitment of the founders and how fast they go, and just, being part of everything. As you grow the company, of course, you have to like delegate and you have to put the processes in place. But that early kind of, traction of like being in everything, you gotta have that to be successful.
Yeah, love it. You ready for the fire round?
Yeah, let's do it.
What are your top 3 movies of all time?
Oh my God.
I told you.
I watch a lot of kids movies, like recently.
You're just
Train
done.
Your Dragon,
You're done with all the Cyberattacks. You're like, I'm watching
No.
Dragon.
That is so like 1990s.
What's your favorite hobby outside of work?
Whenever I get a chance, I try to work out.
That's how you de-stress.
That's how I de-stress.
Yeah. Your last meal on earth?
Caviar with very good like sourdough bread and butter.
Oh wow.
And a glass of champagne.
That's fun.
Ideally in France.
Yes.
Yeah.
That sounds like a vibe. What's a book you'd recommend to aspiring entrepreneurs?
A lot of like the classical books of like Crossing the Chasm, and all of these books like helped me a lot with like thinking differently. There are a lot of like of the classical books of like the job to be done. We have to be like bold enough to imagine the future of the world, like versus just making it incremental, if that makes sense. And especially now with the advent of AI, it's like you gotta imagine something that's millions of times better than what we currently have, because otherwise it just like the pace is completely different.
God, I asked about your favorite book.
I know. I somehow brought it back to like
I'm
security.
joking. You gave some good lines in that, so I'm into it. What do you fear most? You're a successful entrepreneur. From a business person's lens, they're looking at you and they're like, everything's going great.
Yeah, everything's going great.
Yeah, no problems.
If we can just put our differences aside, there's like a lot of conflicts going on in the world right now. If we just get past that and use technology to like advance human life in general, like we're at such an incredible time. Okay, awesome. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.